Hello again, and welcome to 12 Mile Creek, the last stream in Niagara with the conditions and features that can support brook trout. As an indicator of a healthy cold water ecosystem, brookies need cold, clean, and clear water. If these fish cannot survive here, it means that the stream has degraded and is in trouble. Observations of declining brook trout populations are concerning. So let's look at why this stream is unique and discover more about the last place in Niagara where brookies can live. Let's begin by talking about water. When it rains or snows, water or meltwater moves through the soil or over the ground into streams, joining rivers and then flowing to lakes and on to larger water bodies. Each area of land where all the water collects into the same place is called a watershed or drainage basin. Looking locally, we notice that any surface or groundwater that drains into 12 Mile Creek is part of the 12 Mile Creek watershed. This watershed and many other river watersheds flow into Lake Ontario and are part of the Lake Ontario watershed, which is part of the even larger Great Lakes Basin watershed that flows through the St. Lawrence River and into the Atlantic Ocean.
I never thought about how our water here in Fonthill can make its way to the Atlantic Ocean. But what is it about this area that makes the water cold and clean enough for brookies?
That's a great question. Below our feet, as water moves through rocks and soils as groundwater, it stays cool. In Fonthill, groundwater is a pretty consistent 12 degrees throughout the year. The water also gets filtered and cleaned as it moves underground. In the headwaters of 12 Mile Creek, the land has been shaped in a way that provides a consistent flow of cold, clean spring water from the ground. The town of Fonthill sits on one of the largest came deltas in the world. In the world!
Wait, sorry. What is a came delta? And how are they formed? And what makes it so special?
More than 12,000 years ago, over the land where Fonthill is located, meltwater poured from a glacier into the waters of an adjacent lake. Sand and gravel carried by the meltwater were deposited and fanned out in a delta formation extending from Fonthill towards Fenwick. As the glacier melted, retreating northwards, the steep ravines and valleys of the short hills were formed by further deposits of glacial till and scouring as the drainage ultimately shifted northward through today's 12 Mile Creek.
So, the Fonthill Came is made up these loose and porous glacial deposits of sand and gravel that create reservoirs or aquifers for groundwater storage and recharge?
Exactly. Precipitation absorbed into the ground can be stored in the pore spaces between these sediments. Moving slowly, this water eventually emerges from surface springs or upwellings within the creek. Although some water flows over the surface in this watershed, it's the cold and clean groundwater supply here that is unique in providing high water quality to the tributaries of 12 Mile Creek.
Why don't brook trout lay their eggs in parts of Lake Ontario? The water there is cold and clean, isn't it?
That's a good point. Brook trout are specialized to lay their eggs in gravelly areas with fast-flowing and cold water. They need streams with naturally meandering bends that form deep, cool pools and alternating riffle areas where turbulent, shallow water flows over rocks. Neither of these habitat features occur in a body of water as large as Lake Ontario. The rocky riffles are ideal for creating nests and laying eggs, while larger trout retreat to the deep pools to stay cool. There are also fewer predators in the narrow tributaries of the upper 12 Mile Creek. Up until recently, 12 Mile Creek was an ideal spawning location for our brookies, with events from thousands of years ago perfecting the conditions required for successful reproduction. However, more recently, dramatic impacts have made things difficult for the brookies.
Join us in the next module where we will learn more about the threats that 12 Mile Creek and the brook trout are currently facing.